Thanks for joining us. This is our extended interview with Moshe Rosenblum-Amsel, who is host of the Profit with Law podcast and founder of the Law Firm Growth Summit. The first part of this video is from our GNGF Live, which happens every other Wednesday over on our Facebook page. The second part here in this bonus extended interview, we're going to dive into specific how-to steps to position your firm based on his predictions for 2021. If you already saw the live, I'll put the timestamp to the exclusive extended interview below. Be sure to like and subscribe, though, to follow along with all of our great conversations on legal marketing and the business side of running a law firm. And please smash that like button on this video. It really helps us in the Facebook and YouTube algorithms. And to watch this video on the platform of your choice, you can find everywhere we stream over at GNGF.tv. Welcome to GNGF Live, your bi-weekly Ask the Experts about all things law firm marketing and business growth. I'm Mark Homer, author of Online Law Practice Strategies and founder of Get Noticed, Get Found. On this show, we focus on the business side of growing and running your law firm. So I'm very excited to have today's guest, Moshe Rosenblum-Amsel, who's the host of the Profit with Law podcast and also founder of the Law Firm Growth Summit. Moshe recently did a prediction of things law firms are going to be facing in 2021 over on his podcast. So I invited him here to discuss those further with me. So as always, though, be sure to like and subscribe to our page, not just the video, so you get updated when our next episode goes live. And of course, it never hurts for you to show a little love and go ahead and smash that like button on the video. It really helps us in the Facebook or YouTube algorithms. We've got moderators in the chat, so please ask questions and interact during the premiere. And if you're watching in the future, after the premiere, we do monitor the comments and we'll reach out to our guests and answer any follow-up questions you have. That's because we love you all and we love getting to meet you online and in person. So you can find a list of our upcoming webinars and events where we will be speaking on our website over at gnGF.com/events. On weeks when we're not premiering an interview, we do try to drop a video as part of our GNGF tip series. And these are in-depth videos focusing on one topic at a time. You can check it out on our YouTube page or by heading over to GNGF.tv. You can watch our latest video after this interview, of course, at that link in the chat. So check them out. Like I said, we drop a new GNGF tips video every other Friday. All right, let's get to the interview. Moshe, thanks for joining me today.
Mark, it's my absolute pleasure to be here. I really love everything that you do. So it's an honor to be a guest here on your show.
Yeah, a second-time guest. I think you're one of the few second-time guests we've had. So thanks for coming back on. Appreciate it.
I'll be checking my mail for my trophy.
So I wanted to talk about, because love your podcast, Profit with Law. Everybody should check that out. Great podcast. But you did something. I think you do this every year, but I noticed it this year. You did your predictions for 2021 for kind of law firm business owners, right?
Yep. I released that in December, and I said, here's what I think is going to happen in the legal industry in the next year. I'm not a prophet. But what's interesting is that I have my finger on the pulse of the industry from a unique perspective, because I have legal clients I work with, but I also have a bunch of really, influencers, experts that come on my podcast, and we have hour-long conversations. So I have an interesting insight into what's happening, where the pain points are, and where the shifts are moving through those conversations.
Yeah, I love it. And you have from, like maybe even legal industry people, but also just bringing in experts from outside, which I really like about your podcast, bringing people outside that law, a lot of lawyers, aren't aware, like, oh, that could be very beneficial to my business. So again, everybody should check it out. But I wanted to talk about, I noticed I kind of jotted some notes around 4 kind of predictions that I got from the episode that I got you talked about. And if you could kind of run through those for our audience here. And I don't think, because, for our main, portion here, we have about 20 minutes. I don't think we'll have time to go through the in-depth of what people can do. But if you don't mind sticking around, for the second half, we could stream that up to YouTube and then maybe go into some of the detail of action items lawyers can take about these predictions possibly. Like if this is what's going to be happening this year, here's things you can do to kind of like get in front of it.
Absolutely, okay. Mark. That sounds like a great idea, and I'm happy to stick around and help with not just the, hey, this is what you need to know, but what are some actions you can take right now to start to conquer and get ahead of the curve with these things.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in because we've got I also, same thing, right? Do interviews and stuff like that. And all of these resonated with me. And I really want to dive into a couple of them because it's not an area that, maybe I'm not involved in as much with a lot of law firms. But the first one I am, and I totally agreed with this one. You talked about how networking and referrals and that kind of stuff is going to be on the down, on the decline this year. Not the totally drying up, we know referrals still drive a lot of business, but it's on the decline, and people need to start looking at other sources of, lead generation, essentially.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Mark, is that referrals have always been the driver for a small law practice, but it's also been the nemesis of a small law practice because you kind of get used to the fact that you have referrals coming in and you assume that you're going to have that level of business, but you have no control over it. Mm-hmm. So if those referrals dry up, how do you continue at the level you're at? If you want to grow your practice, how do you grow beyond the level that you're at? You have to use other marketing tactics in order to be more, be able to predict more fully what's going to happen in your firm. And now all my prediction was, and it doesn't take a genius to see this, is, hey, people haven't been getting together socially. What does that mean? It means that I am not having a conversation with my best friend about my, parent being sick, and that leading to a conversation about estate planning. And hey, I've got a good estate planning attorney who really can help bring your parents to the table for that conversation of end of life. That conversation happening around the barbecue grill is not happening right now. So what's happening is that unless somebody is specifically looking to their friends and calling up and saying, hey, I need an attorney for X, do you have a recommendation for me? Those referrals that happen naturally through the course of social interaction are not happening. And that's why I think we're going to see a significant drop off in referral traffic if we haven't already, because those interactions are not happening. So it's kind of, there's like a long tailwind of that effect where the referrals that we had pre-pandemic, we're first working through and we're serving those clients. We may not be recognizing that we don't have that new business coming through the door. And that's really where a business owner needs to see there's a problem that's going to be coming, and I need to be able to anticipate that that's happening and make adjustments.
Yeah, I agree. Wholeheartedly, and we'll dive into some things we can do about that in later. But I will say that one thing I've always talked about is that predictability of new business is a big difference from a business owner just getting by and one that's starting to grow and thrive. Right? Like referrals are great, and you should encourage them. It's good, usually good type of clients, good conversion rates if you're tracking all that stuff. But you need, it's not predictable. And I agree in that with that. And so the fact that that's possibly drying up, something to be very aware of. And are you doing some of the other things you probably should have already been doing? But definitely, let's look at that later. But I want to go into the next one.
Before the next one, Mark, I just want to really point out one key point, and that is, if referrals are not happening socially, you have to think about where are they happening, because referrals are still happening.
Right.
They're just happening in a different way. And if you start to think about it, it happens through people searching for the solution and then seeing you listed. And now the referral, instead of it coming from a friend who's trusted, they're now looking at the world to give that referral. So they're looking at your ranking in Google and your number of reviews and how many stars you've got to determine whether you're somebody worth picking up the phone for. And that's still referrals,
Absolutely.
right? The referral source is different. And the Clio Legal Trends Report, which I love with the work that they do, and they have the muscles to do it. There's no way I could do it, but I would love to one day be able to produce a report like that. But one of the things that's in the report, it's on page 46, they did this analysis where they ranked 1 to 10. What are the factors that consumers have rated as the most important decision factor in choosing a law firm? And you know what number one is? You probably know this, but your audience probably doesn't. Number one was has good reviews, recommendations.
Yep.
Right. So if we can dive into the how-to and the extended, but the one takeaway for this prediction is referrals, the way you know them, might dry up this year. but referrals will come from somewhere else. And now you have to figure out how to make that the place that people say, oh, this is somebody I need to work with.
Yeah. And successful firms have been doing this for a while. Like, I mean, we've had a chapter, I think it's actually more, it's almost the first third of our book, we call Protect Your Referrals. And the whole concept is that, right? It's like referrals are moving online. The fact that you even have, like reviews and, Google influencing what people see, other channels as well, right? Like that whole world, like smart law firm owners have been doing that for a while and helping out the growth there. So we call it Protect Your Referrals, and the fact, I mean, every year those type of things keep moving up that list. If you keep looking down there, there's other related things that.
And there's no way to know what the opportunity cost of not taking care of that is. Right. You don't know how many people are picking up the phone to check you out and have a conversation with you because of the fact that you don't have enough referrals, or you don't enough reviews, or you don't have a big enough rating. I work for the podcast. I work really hard to drive my listeners to leave a rating and review. Mm-hmm. It is hard. I mean, we've been doing it for 18 months and what do we have? Like 25 reviews? Like, I don't even know what the number is, but at least it's 5 stars, but when somebody is checking out and saying, hey, which podcast should I listen to? They're not just looking to see, is it 5-star rating? They're looking to see how many people rated it. If it's got no reviews, 1, 2, 3 reviews, oh, nobody's listening to this show. Right. But then when they see a show that's got 100 reviews, then they look at mine, I've got 20, they're going to listen to the one with 100 reviews. So quantity and quality both matter. All right. So you wanted to jump into the next one.
So you would, again, via my notes from the podcast, you talked about kind of like the business model shift. And I got some of the things out of there that you talked about, like pricing, changes in the way that we deliver services, maybe changes the way we price, payment processes and stuff. Unpack that a little bit. Again, don't get into like, the how-tos, but, kind of like the concept of what the shift is.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, Mark, is that people have very strong opinions about this. And one of the strong opinions that exists in the marketplace is that attorneys should not give up their value by charging less per hour. Right? They should be charging more per hour. And it's always this thing to, okay, how much can I charge per hour? What is the max I can get? Can I go to 600? Can I go to 650 and keep testing to see, have I arrived yet? Like, am I important enough for somebody to pay me that kind of money for that hourly rate? And the truth is that the entire model of billing by the hour, although somebody enlightened me recently that it was driven by the consumer initially, and attorneys used to charge a flat fee many, many years ago, and I didn't know this, but the consumer no longer wants to be charged by the hour. The consumer doesn't want to have a open-ended potential liability where they can't make a decision about whether or not it's worthwhile for them to pursue this matter. So the consumer is asking for different things. And once again, I'm going to go back to the Clio Legal Trends report, because what's number 2, 3, and 4 on the list of most important factors for choosing an attorney? I'm going to go to it right now. Page 46. Offers lower prices, discounts, offers payment plans, offers fixed fees.
Fixed fees, payment plans.
The consumer is saying, this is what we want. We want to have payment plans. We want to have fixed fees. We want to know that we can afford to pay for the services. And this is also goes to the conversation of access to justice and, and all of that. But what's very interesting that Clio points out that people miss is the attorneys who are billing by the hour, you have this process in place. There's a few faults in that process. Number one, the insurance that they're going to pay their bill after you did the work is the retainer. But most attorneys do a very poor job of replenishing the retainer, of asking their clients to replenish the retainer as they contractually agreed. And because of this psychological mess that they have, that they're not willing to ask the client for that, they end up getting into this situation where there's open invoices, and then it becomes this big AR problem. So many attorneys have a massive accounts receivable because clients get served, they don't pay their invoice, and then you're working behind to try to collect it. And it's such a suck on energy and an inefficient way to work. But the other thing is in the billing process, they go through this process where they first review the bill and they say, oh, it doesn't make sense that we spent 4 hours doing this. This would normally take 2 hours. We cut it down to 2 hours. And we go through all of the work that we did, and we constantly cut down how much we're billing the client before they even see it. Then the client gets the bill, and the client falls off their chair. Now, they would have fallen off their chair no matter what, because clients are clients. They're gonna try to get the best deal that they can. And they call up and they say, hey, I don't understand. Why was I charged for this call? This is your fault. Why was I charged for this? Why is this bill so high? And before you know it, you're like, okay, I'm going to cut this money. I'm going to cut this. So at the end of the day, when you look at what you actually worked, your hourly rate, what you should have collected, and what you actually collect, there's a big discrepancy between that. And that exists in that model. And what happens is that essentially what you're doing is you're giving them a discount. The problem is you're giving them the discount on the back end. So how many people chose not to move forward with you because of your hourly price? But in reality, if you do look at how many hours you're working and what you're charging for it, your hourly rate might be half of that. But you're playing this game, and you're losing clients on the front end because you're not giving them your true rate. So that entire model is broken, and the consumer is in the driver's seat today. That's the biggest shift that really is driving. I mean, this has been changing for a long time, but what's really happening is that the consumer is wising up and saying, hey, there's a better way. We have all kinds of other things that we pay a flat fee for. I pay Netflix a flat fee a month, and I can watch all the videos I want to watch that Netflix has. Right? That's the mindset the consumer is in right now. So when I go to an attorney and one attorney offers me a flat fee to get something done and another one's charging me hourly, which am I choosing?
Right. And the interesting thing, I took that away from it, and then it got me thinking though. The other thing that I hear a lot of, I think, law firm owners and just lawyers in general, but the owners kind of miss is, especially when they're kind of like the solo small, is doing everything by the hour means you're basically forcing yourself to have a job, and you can never really elevate into a business owner who then gets to pick and choose what he wants to work on when he wants to work on it, or she wants to work on it. So, the other thing is, by having flat fees or figuring out what you can deliver for in a profitable way, which probably gets me into my next thing. I noticed you talked about technology too, right? But figuring all that stuff out, instead of like cutting your price down, it's just have a very value-driven price that's consistent and flat. And then if you can perform that with better quality deliverables and better quality services, and then have some technology involved in a team, you can have a very profitable business where you get to work on things the way you want to work on them. You can show up to work the way you want to show up to work. And it's all intertwined in there. And so it's not just the consumer driving it. At least this is probably a better way to run a law firm for a lot of people that don't even maybe realize it, or haven't really stepped back to say, I can actually, live a different way every day.
Yeah. And Mark, you make a really good point. And my next prediction that we were going to talk about was technology. And this is really a good segue into that, because up until now, if you're billing hourly, you're billing your paralegal hourly, and there's a piece of technology that comes along and says, hey, we can make you more efficient.
Yeah.
The question that you need to ask is, why in the world would I spend money on technology to make me more efficient? That's going to make me bill less time to the client when I can just do it myself, or have my paralegal do it, and we can bill our time for it.
Right.
So in that business model, there is no room for innovation. There is no room for elevation. There is no room to assign things to people who are not necessarily officially qualified, right? So if you have somebody in the back office, a virtual assistant that's doing things for you, you can't turn around to your clients and bill a virtual assistant fee, right? So it's not just technology. It's all of the forms of leverage that you would use to create more room in your life and more time in your life. All of those are at odds with the business model. And this is very interesting, because in the last conversation, I just said that the clients are driving that conversation around pricing. But the truth is that it's actually which came first, the chicken or the egg. What happened is this past year with COVID, law firm owners were thrown and thrust into this area of technology. If you didn't have it yet, you have it now. And it opened up a lot of people's eyes to the possibilities of, there's ways to automate things. There's ways to create better systems using technology that's available. One of the things, there's a few companies that do this, but Loya is a good example. They have created a tool where you can automate the drafting process for
Yes.
documents that you're drafting. And essentially what you do is you create this questionnaire that has logic behind it. And then the client fills in the information that they're going to be giving to you in a conversation. And now they're filling it in on a form. And the entire document is being drafted automatically. And all you need to do is review it and make sure it's correct and make any changes that are necessary. So essentially, you've cut out probably 4 to 15 billable hours around a process. Now, you would have normally charged $5,000 for it. So charge $5,000 for it and have it take you no time.
Yeah.
Make that investment in technology, but you have to change your business model for that to work. So now that people are seeing this kind of technology exists, there are ways that I can make this more efficient. There's different ways that I can look at staffing, which is the next thing we can talk about. That is going to drive the shift in the business model also, because it doesn't fit in the hourly model. There's no way to pass that to the client, and therefore there's no incentive for you to do it. But we can see how many more clients you can serve,
right,
if you use that.
And the idea is you're providing first of all, as consumers, we're expecting things to be very technology driven, right? Like, I do not want to go to a doctor unless I can go see all my test results in the portal. I don't want to have to wait for that phone call. I mean, voicemail. I mean, half my phone calls are robocalls, right? But let me go when I want to go to something, right? So like portals and tools, like consumers want that stuff. They expect that stuff. But you're right. Like the idea of the law firm owners realizing that I can, take something that I assume drafting documents is not when most people became lawyers. Maybe somebody loves that part of their business and they can find a way to do that. That's great. But you take pieces you don't like, like we'll talk about outsourcing in a second, but with the technology, you're kind of outsourcing to the technology too. And, cut those things down. I mean, you could take, like you said, that $5,000 example, maybe make it, $4,750 and have a deal and be cheaper than everybody else that's charging $5,000 and you still make more money.
Yeah, you can make it $3,000, right? Because the idea is that you're putting in the upfront cost, you're paying for the software, and you're putting in the effort to set it up. So you're going to monetize that. You're providing value, but essentially what you're doing is you're passing the benefit to the client, and at the same time, you're also benefiting. So if you charge $3,000 for something that you really don't have to do anything for, maybe an hour's worth of work or 2 hours worth of work, and the client feels like they're getting something that they would have had to pay $5,000 for, who's the winner?
Yeah.
Everybody, the software company, the client, and the lawyer.
Like you said, like you have Netflix. It doesn't cost Netflix any more to turn you on versus somebody else. Well, maybe a little server, space or time, but like next to nothing for them to turn it on. But yet they still charge me, right? So because and I value it. I think it's a great deal, So I want to kind of talk about outsourcing to technology, but let's talk about the other piece you talked about in the shift in resource models. So same kind of thing, right? It's the idea I got was, like there's a lot of traditional way brings a lot of overhead. The billable model brings certain things that have to happen. Also brings, staff. Having staff brings benefits, brings all these other things, headaches you have to have of managing people, turnover, training. You talked about the gig model. You talked about things, outsourcing, right? Vendors.
Yeah. So basically if you look at the taxi industry, right? What did Uber do? What did they come up with? They came up with a marketplace for anybody who wants to be a taxi driver to be a taxi driver, and anybody who wants a car to get a car on demand. So all they did was created the middleware for people to be able to do what they wanted to do. And when you're a law firm owner, if you need bookkeeping done, and I'm using an example that everyone can understand because we already have shifted to this mindset for bookkeeping.
Yeah.
When you need bookkeeping done and you probably only need 3 or 4 hours a week, would you hire a full-time bookkeeper, or would you find a bookkeeping company that might charge you for those 4 hours $1,000 a month, but you're going to get your books done and you don't have to hire a full-time employee to do that? It's
interesting because I think a lot of law firm owners actually, and I would say traditional business owners, right? So let's not even, like, I'm not trying to pile on, lawyers or something, but a lot of traditional business owners would say, oh, well, I'm going to get an admin or an office manager, and they're going to do a little bit of bookkeeping, and then they're going to do a little bit of filing and documents, and then make some calls, and, oh, can you handle my social media? And next thing you know, this office manager admin has to be an expert in things that you could outsource to an actual expert for a few $100s an hour or a few $100s a month or something, right?
Right.
So by finding these actual experts, which you talked about, right, like outsourcing to somebody who's the best at this, you don't need these jack of all trade positions that aren't really great.
Exactly. So instead of that front receptionist, you hire Smith AI. Instead of the receptionist doing your bookkeeping, and she has no idea what she's doing when it comes to bookkeeping, and has to learn and has to make all those mistakes, and your books are not correct, you go to a bookkeeper, have them do that. Start taking all of those pieces, and hiring the expert might seem to be expensive, but it's actually way cheaper to get the job done right the first time and not have to take on a full-time person to do it. But it's not just that, it's attorneys also, it's paralegals also, right. it's assistants and admin staff also, that there are other alternatives to. There's law clerk, which is a marketplace for contract attorneys. There's we had on the podcast, we had this girl, Jacqueline Foster, who runs a paralegal, virtual paralegal services. And there's others as well. I just happen to know about her because I had her on the podcast. But no matter what you need to put into your law firm, it's available out there. And we even had Brett Tremblay from Get Staffed Up. He's one of the sponsors of our Law Firm Growth Summit, which I know we're gonna mention at some point in this call. The Get Staffed Up, he started it because for his law firm, he needed to have a better solution to bring on admin staff. And what he did is he went to Central and South America and found people there who were highly educated, fluent in English in his time zone, that he didn't have to have the overhead for staffing that you have here in the US, where you have all the employment laws and all of that, and the minimum wage laws, and for a fraction of the cost of a full-time person, he was able to bring on a full-time person there who's very happy to be getting paid what they're getting paid. They are very happy to be working in a prestigious law firm. And now he's, for the price of one full-time admin, he's got 4 or 5 admins. Mm-hmm. And you start to look at situations like that, and you start to question, why have I not thought about doing this differently? But it goes back to that, that underlying business model, which is, if I'm billing hourly, then I need to be doing the work. My paralegal needs to be doing the work. And it becomes very, very hard to start to bill those things when you have other people who now you have to tell your client, oh, that my VA in Mexico, spent 4 hours on your account, so you're getting charged $50 an hour for the VA, and they might know where that VA is. They're talking to them, so you find that you can't make these decisions because you're afraid of what it's going to look like to the client, but you're only afraid because of the billing model you're in. Right. And if you turn around into a deliverable flat fee, that all these pieces fall into place. So it's kind of like they all work together. And a shift in the consumer mindset, a shift in the labor pool, and a shift in the billing model, and all of a sudden everything can work. And that's where I think we're going to see a big shift in the upcoming, in the next year, but even the years after that, where a lot of law firms are going to start adapting this, and whoever gets there first is going to win the game.
Yeah, and I think we probably went a little bit too far deep on a few of these because we started getting into some of the hows, and you said you could stick with me, and we can stream up to YouTube later, maybe on Friday, and get this out, the full episode. But there was more in your predictions and stuff. People should go back and check the podcast episode, and it's a podcast in general, Profit with Law, and of course leave a review when you're there, because it sounds like Moshe needs some more 5-star reviews. But before we go, I wanted to talk about the Law Firm Growth Summit you have coming up, because these predictions, you went and sought out the people who were great speakers on your podcast, but also people you found could help talk about these type of things. And then the other thing I like is when because you graciously invited us to come speak, but you said, hey, but don't just come and talk about this stuff. Talk about, how to, in 45 minutes, what do they take away? What does somebody walk away with, the next step? So they're not just kind of coming and getting platitudes at the conference. And the other thing I'll say before I let you kind of talk more about the Law Firm Growth Summit is I'm also very excited for this year because last year, like you did a law firm, virtual conference before anybody else was even thinking that virtual conferences were a thing, which was kind of cool. So it was already successful before everybody suddenly had to shift their real conferences to virtual. So this year you're getting to level up and take, any lessons learned and grow from your past experience where everybody else was doing it the first time. So it's going to be really cool this year. I'm very excited for some of the stuff you're doing, but tell everybody about the Law Firm Growth Summit, because I think everybody who's listening to this should definitely be going on and attending.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I want to share is that what we just discussed in the last 20 minutes, all of those points, strategies, how to do that in your firm, all of that is being covered in 3 days, right. February 9th to 11th at the Law Firm Growth Summit. And we're literally, like Mark said, we have hands-on workshops. One of the pieces of feedback I got from clients and podcast listeners and stuff like that is there's a lot of in-person conferences that went virtual this year. And we're tired of attending webinars all day long, leaving with a to-do list 20 pages long that we're never going to get to. Attorneys' time is precious. And if we're going to tell you the information, why not give you the space to actually implement it right then and there? So what we did is we took these main topic areas and we created workshops around them so that when you come, you're going to leave with something already created, ready to implement when you get back to work after you leave the event. The event's entirely virtual, but what we learned from the last event was, hey, when we're the only virtual event, everyone's going to love just being able to attend the sessions and have a live Q&A at night. But now people want to have connection. They're missing the in-person experience that they had at real conferences.
Right.
So what we did is we invested heavily in a technology platform that's going to allow this to be an event where you could have those conversations. You know, those hallway conversations where you run into somebody you only see at conferences? Well, first of all, you get them to come to the event since you're coming. So we have a share campaign to reward you for that. But once they're there, you can connect with anybody who's an attendee and you can invite them to a call. You can schedule a call with them and you can have up to 5 people in that call. So you can actually have these on the fly networking sessions that you would typically have had these hallway conversations for. And on top of that, we're creating networking opportunities. We have like a speed networking where you'll get paired with somebody for 3 minutes and then we pair you with somebody else. And that gives you additional opportunity to meet other people and try to get rid of that barrier that we've all felt over the last 9 to 12 months of just being isolated in our homes and working from home. And now you can meet with other pairs and see them. So the content is amazing. The networking opportunities are great. We have we're doing a grand prize giveaway. We're doing all kinds of giveaways to really make it fun for you. We're bringing in entertainment for the evening hours as well, which we're still working on the details of that. But this is going to be something that people are going to be talking about, and you don't want to be the one on the outside looking in saying, "Oh man, I wish I would have gone to that thing." So definitely check it out. I know that Mark's got his own URL and offer for you for this event. I'm going to let him share that. The last thing I'm going to say is we've got a great lineup of speakers. We have almost 40 speakers speaking at this event. Some of them were at our last event and they're repeat speakers, and some of them are brand new. But we have keynote speakers that I'm so excited about. First of all, I'm a huge fan of Profit First. I know Mark is as well. Well, Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, is one of our keynote speakers. We also have Kevin Harrington, one of the original sharks on the show Shark Tank. And Mike's going to be talking about Profit First. Kevin is going to be talking about how to be a person of influence in this world where we now need to build our own audience and authority in the marketplace. And then the third is David Neagle, a very well-known international business coach from Life Is Now. And he's going to be talking about how to turn your annual income into your monthly income. So those are 3 great keynote speakers we're going to have. And then we have on top of that, more than 30 speakers of people that are just serving the legal space. You know, a lot of them. Go to the web page that Mark's going to share with you and check out the lineup there.
Yeah, and for those listening, you can go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, and if you go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com and do /GNGF, you actually can get a page that will, have a discount on, and you have to type in this coupon code though. It's GNGF. So that's, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/GNGF. And then on that page, there'll be a coupon code. It's GNGF 80. So if you type in GNGF 80, that'll give you a bigger discount than any other public place you can find the price. So, like Moshe's, gave us the opportunity to, reach out to our clients and listeners and stuff, and provide a better discount for that, and inviting me to speak. Thank you again. I'm looking forward to that. I got a lot of value out of it last year. Being able to be a speaker, I got to be a free attendee, so that was great. And you're right. There's a lot of times when, I'll see some people that I know, and, I end up kind of like starting a text chain because we know we're both, sitting on this, webinar or at the conference. So having the technology to just kind of like see a few people and tap it and kind of start our own little conversation in room is really exciting. So that's something that I would have loved at some other conferences this past year. So, stick with me, and we'll come back and talk about a few more topics in depth of how the exact how-to things that we have some ideas for how people can, get ahead of these predictions for the year. So bear with me 1 second, Moshe.
Yep, I'll be here.
All right. So thanks for sticking with us, everybody. We are going to cut off the Facebook portion as we're about out of time. I think a little overtime this time. I apologize. I respect your time very much. But definitely come back and check us out on YouTube on Friday, because we're going to have the extended interview here where we're going to go in a little more detail, and we'll have the exactly where to hit that up in the YouTube video to kind of be able to skip this portion you've already watched and get to the meat of, the how-to, which is very important. These are great topics. These predictions were wonderful. I totally agree with a lot of these things, and I've already seen people doing it last year. So you definitely want to get ahead of this and check us out on Friday. And Moshe, before I let everybody go, what's the best way they can, follow you or reach out to you, and maybe they're interested in some law firm growth coaching or something else?
Just come to the event February 9th to the 11th. There is no better way to follow me there than there. You mentioned the podcast a couple of times. If you want to know what's going on in my life and the amazing things we're working on, just become a regular listener, because everything we do, we're mentioning and promoting there as well.
Awesome. So lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/GNGF, and check out Profit with Law podcast. All right. So we're going to cut this off today. We'll see you guys next time. All right, Moshe, thanks for sticking with me and offering to spend a little extra time here to dive into the detail on your predictions of some how-tos. And those who are, just joining us, and you maybe skipped the first part, if you haven't listened to what the predictions were and kind of why you need to care about this stuff, definitely go back and check the first part of the stream. So, but I want to get into these predictions. We'll start with the first one, which I think we got into some things, but I want to talk about the networking and referrals not drying up, but maybe reducing a little bit, and not being the other point you made, not being the predictable source of new business to lead for growth, as much as just kind of like depending on something that may not be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to share, Mark, because you had asked me about, how long do I have for this talk. This is my most favorite thing to do in the entire world. Just stand here and have a conversation and be able to help other people is just, that's my zone. So I'm really loving this conversation where it's gone so far. And I think what's interesting is that you kind of tweaked my prediction a little bit to fit your question. And I think that we need to look at what's really happening. What is the shift that's really happening? And some of it is, hey, these social interactions are not happening, so the referrals are drying up from there. But the other thing that's happening is when my friend tells me, hey, go check out this attorney, it's the perfect thing for you. What's the next thing that I do? I Google that attorney, Googling, right? Exactly. I check out that attorney. And the first thing I do is I take a look and I see what's their rating and review on Google. What does their website look like? Who else works in their firm? And those are the questions, and those are that is where my mind goes as a consumer, and it has nothing to do with attorneys, right? We do that for everything. I tell you, hey, you got to buy this widget. First thing I do is go on Amazon.
Yep.
and I check out the Amazon reviews because that's where I know I can go to for reviews. But then once I decide to buy the product, I don't automatically put it in my cart. Depending on the price of the product, I might go on Google and Google the item and go to the shopping tab and see, can I get it for less somewhere else, right? So we're trained as consumers to shop this way. And I think that the change in the referrals drying up, stuff like that, yes, that is something that is going to happen. But the real fundamental shift that has been happening and will continue to happen and has accelerated because of COVID, because we've had no choice but to shop online for everything, that acceleration is going to continue. Absolutely. And if we don't have that path fixed, if we don't have that done, if we don't have a beautiful website, if we don't have good reviews on Google, if we don't have those things in the bag, those things done, when somebody checks us out, even if it comes through a referral, we have the risk of losing that before they ever come to us.
Yeah. And SEO speak, right? We use the term branded search, and that's a branded search, right? They're searching for your name or your firm name or that kind of thing. You need to really own and control that, like, as much as you can. And again, if you want detailed how-tos, you've got the whole Protect Your Referral section of our book, Online Law Practice Strategies. So you can check that out. And we've talked about that book here before. So, but it's just this, and I have it's funny because I have a story on this one, Moshe, where we had a client who hired us, and within about 3 or 4 months. So the first 3 months, we're basically, we launch a website, we do Google My Business, a lot of the directory listing cleanup work. Just make sure that, like when somebody searches their name, because we can control that as much as possible, maybe a Facebook page, stuff like that. It looks really nice. It's very consistent. Push on them to get a lot of reviews or get the reviews in the right places. And, we were very honest with clients to do like a lot of lead gen from search engine optimization for people that don't know who you are. It takes time. It could take 9 months or so. So 3 months in, this person calls and he's like, my goodness, you guys are just crushing it. I don't know what the secret search engine sauce you have is, because our phone is ringing off the hook. And we're like, look, we haven't even gotten to that point yet of really driving all that kind of, this. What we can see from the searches though, is that all we did was take people that were already looking for you, and now they're calling because they weren't turned off, right? And this is somebody who, like 100-something% improvement in their leads in like 3 months. And they were like going, like, this is amazing. And all they did was that. All they did was, or we, with them, right, is help them look better online when somebody searched for them, because referrals are happening. And, but, like the other thing you talked about, the Google is a referral engine, right? Like if people go to Google to ask a question, expect it to give them the answer that is right.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, we don't like that.
You gave a great starting point, which is your book. But I want to give another point, because we want to give some how-tos here. And this point is going to be totally different than probably where anybody watching this thinks that I'm going to go. You need to get more Google reviews, period, from your clients, right? Why aren't you getting them right now? Because you're not asking for them. But why are you not asking for them? And if you really question that and you really sit and think about it, most business owners are not asking for reviews because they're afraid of what their clients are going to say. And what that does is it turns this whole conversation around to, where do you start with this process? Yeah, there's the tactical stuff you'll learn in the book, but you start by providing stellar customer service and a stellar customer experience. And when you finish with a client and they were happy every step of the way, at that point, it is natural for you to say, hey, were you happy with the service you received here? And they say, well, hell yes, give me more if I need it. And you say, well, we need other people to hear that. Can you please be kind enough to leave us a Google review? How easy would it be to get Google reviews? So when if you understand the value of needing to have those reviews, then you'll start at the real problem, which is fixing the problems in your firm where things get stuck, where things take longer than they should, where client communication breaks down, where expectations are set that are not met. And if you start to fix those things, that's going to automatically fix your Google review problem.
Yeah, we had what was it, I was recording this now, so it was yesterday. I had a lot of people don't know, but we also partner on the law firm growth incubator. And so some of the members in the incubator were asking, and reviews came up, and somebody said, how do I get reviews? And it was like in a more sensitive type of area. Because that's one of the questions we get a lot of times, like, well, I deal with divorces, I deal with, people don't want to talk about their crime, those kind of things, right? But one of the things that we got into the conversation, we talked about that particular thing, but one of the things that I brought up, and I heard you say kind of like at the end of the case, but I've been kind of coaching a little bit to people, say it's not always has to be at the end. Like if you think about your process, and again, getting into that process mind of what is the process of a life cycle or kind of case, there are highs and lows, right? And somebody talked about, again, we were going back and forth on this call, and somebody said, oh yeah, when we come out of a mediation, I still have a lot of time and a lot of like stuff that happens that frustrates people and all this kind of thing, because it's just naturally that, that they were dealing with family law and divorce. But like coming out of a mediation typically is a really nice client high. Like they're very excited about what happened and the fact that they can see a path now. And there's, and I'm like, yeah, ask for review then. Like you don't have to wait till the end of the case to ask for the review. It's just a review of what it's like to work with you. And if they're on a high, ask for the review then. So it's building that culture of reviews and culture of customer service and culture of, like feedback, that it's a change. But once you get it, I mean, we have clients who went from, like a few, 10, 20 reviews to now like hundreds of reviews, and have actually gotten phone calls from people saying, I called your firm because everybody else had 20 reviews and you had over 100. Like,
yeah.
That's the only reason. That was their judgment they used.
Yep. Exactly. And nobody cares whether you're a good attorney or not, right? Unfortunately, like, law firm owners really will take insult to this comment, but 90% of the people hiring you are not going to ever ask you about your win rate or the whether or not you've ever had a client sue you because you did something that was negligent on your part. That they're just not doing that level of due diligence. They just want to know that other people had a good experience with you, and that's good enough for them. Yes, there will be the odd one or two that will ask that. I even have that in my coaching program, right? Sometimes somebody is, they want to talk to other coaching clients to see the proof. And you know what? Honestly, I don't give it to them. Not because I don't have it, but because it's not necessary. I don't need to sell you on it. You either want to work with me or you don't. And I sell myself, and what people are saying about me publicly sells myself. So I don't need to prove myself to you. And that's the position you should be able to be in as an attorney, is you should be able to say, look, if you don't want to work with me, that's fine. Go work with somebody else. I only want to work with people who already know they want to work with me. And it might sound cavalier, but if you do the right things, that's what's going to happen, is you're going to be attracting people who are attracted to you because of all the good things that people are saying about you. And those things don't happen by mistake. It's not like you're putting the words in their mouth. You're providing the experience that they're now talking about. And that's why I think it all goes back to, doing that. And I absolutely agree with you 100%. Doesn't have to be at the end. Ask for it. And the key is that the key to happy clients is checking that they're happy. So you can have checkpoints every step of the way to just say, hey, I just wanted to check in and see if you're happy with every aspect of communicating and dealing with our firm. And every time they say yes is another opportunity for you to say, awesome, I'm glad we're doing a good job. By the way, would you mind sharing that with other people?
Right. And one more point on this, and then we'll move on. But like this idea of like, sensitive cases and things like that, if you provide really good customer service and you're honest in your communication, and especially let's say you have a criminal case and it's a tough one, and it's one where, this is an uphill battle. I'm going to do my best. And if you're honest with somebody and say, I'm going to do my best, here's how, here's what the rates are going to be, whether win or lose. Here's the what could go well, here's what could go wrong. And then you go through that process and you have a lot of communication. I've read reviews where people say, I know we had a tough case. We didn't win it, but my goodness, this person fought for me every step of the way. I knew what was going on. They showed up. They like the empathy they provided was amazing. I would hire this person again. And there's somebody who basically got up and said, I didn't win the case. So like, it doesn't even have to be like the wins, right? It's the service that you provided. And that's what somebody cares about. Like, I want to know somebody is going to listen and be communicative and like, communicate the way I want to communicate. We talked about that before, right? Like those kind of things are much more important than a lot of the deep due diligence that a lot of lawyers may think, oh, well, but I clerked at this judge and things like, right? Like people don't even know what that means, but it's, oh, are you going to listen to me? And the Clio report from last year talked about some of those points, right? Of like things people care about and what they think makes a lawyer a good lawyer versus what a lawyer thinks it makes a good lawyer a good
Right.
lawyer. And that was very interesting too. And it was a lot of that,
It was very interesting to see the contrast between the two and how off base the lawyers were with what the clients wanted. That was very interesting as well. One final point with what you're sharing with sensitive areas. If a client hesitates about leaving a review because they don't want to put their name behind it or something like that, anonymous might work. But what you could suggest to them is that they leave the review saying a close relative or a family member needed services, and my interaction with the firm was yada yada. It could have been them, that they were the client, but they're technically a family member of themselves, right? So they can still use that, and this way they get out of the, oh, I needed a criminal attorney, or whatever the sensitive matter is. So you can suggest things like that to make it easier for them. And some people are not going to leave you a review, and that's okay too.
You're not going to get everybody, but building the culture of reviews, you instead of getting 1 or 2 a year, you're going to get 5 a month, and that's what starts snowballing. So jumping in the business model changes and the way people charge for services and stuff. What are some things people, because like that's some of that stuff we talked about is pretty big shifts, but what are some things, like some how to on maybe the first step or the baby steps, or the thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different places to go with that. So first of all, there's two pricing models that are really the front runners here. One is a subscription model and one is a flat fee model. So it becomes very difficult to say, okay, how do I convert from billing hourly to that? And the easiest way is to splinter something that you're doing already into something that can fit in one of these two models. So for example, if you're a business attorney and you're serving business owners, then maybe there's something that needs to happen every year where you review their HR handbook, and you review their insurance coverages to make sure that they're properly meeting all the legal requirements for employing their people, and stuff like that. So maybe you take that thing that has to happen regularly and you say, look, this is not going to cover nearly everything that we do with you, but this one component that is pretty predictable, we know it's going to happen, we're going to turn that into a subscription, and once a quarter you're going to pay us $250 a quarter, and then we're going to just do this for you throughout the year. And then you have to build the processes behind the scenes, but now that can be completely handled by somebody who's not a lawyer, right? I mean, somebody just needs to make sure that they have all the checks in place. You can just review, the final compilation of information, make sure it's all correct, and you spend almost no time on it. And you get to collect that regularly, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually, whatever the way is that you work. But take one piece, turn it into a subscription. Same thing with flat fee. One of the things that I get is, divorce lawyers tell me, well, if it's a contested divorce, the sky's the limit, right? There's no way for me to give a flat fee for it. And I say, yes, you're absolutely right. There is still a place for hourly work when you cannot predict what it's going to be. But let's look at the big picture. What is the first step when somebody comes and says, hey, I think I need to get divorced? Well, the first step is to explain to them the process, to see if they really want to go through the divorce. Do they think that the other party is going to come to the table and be able to do this amicably? And then you build this plan of, hey, this is, the first step is to, discuss these specific talking points with your soon-to-be ex and come to an agreement with them. And then once we do that, we write a separation agreement. And then once we do that, we go to court to file it. And once we, but if at any point it becomes contested, then it moves to a different phase. So what you do is you just say, okay, what is the first thing that I can predict with certainty that this is going to happen no matter what? Well, that initial conversation will happen no matter what. Probably the initial discussions with the opposing party is going to happen no matter what. So you break that into one piece and you say, to get started with me with a divorce, there's 4 phases to the divorce. And this is phase 1. Phase 1 is going to cost you $2,500. When and if you need phase 2, we'll move into that phase. Now, the beautiful thing about doing that is that you don't have to sell them. I mean, it's $2,500 and we're done. Now, yeah, most clients will probably go to phase 2 and you can set that expectation. But the reality is that they're making a decision on phase 1 right now. So they're making a $2,500 decision instead of making a $500 an hour decision and then trying to figure out in their head, how bad is this going to be? Do I need to cash out my retirement account? So I need to sell my car. Do I need to sell my children? Right. So, that you can take one piece of it and splinter it out. And that becomes your first initial flat fee. Or in the Facebook Live, the first part of this video, what we were talking about was this ability to automate drafting. Mm-hmm. That's another good example where you're taking one piece of the process. It's not at the beginning, it's in the middle. And you're saying, well, we don't, for our drafting, we don't charge you by the hour because that's pretty predictable. We know what's involved. We have a flat fee for drafting this document. So you're going to retain us. You're going to pay us by the hour to get to this point. Then we draft this document. Then we do that. The drafting fee is $4,000. The drafting fee is $3,000. And then that's just part of your menu. It's part of your pricing where they know when we get to that, we're going to have to write a check. So that's the first step to get your feet wet and maybe the last step, right? And maybe all you need to do to create more efficiency and to move more people through, because more people are hitting the front end or more people are getting stuck in the pipeline at this hands-on thing that could be automated. And now you've solved that problem.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big shift. And I know we'll have some people probably talking about it at the Law Firm Growth Summit. So definitely, there's some people doing some very forward thinking. Well, a lot of people are already doing this, right? Our good friend Kim Bennett talks about killing the billable hour all the time, and is very passionate on that topic. And we've had her on here before, and she talks about just some of the steps you can do to get there, and it follows a lot of what Moshe said. But you can check that episode out. We'll throw that in the show notes as well, because I think that kind of is a nice how-to for thinking about what does a firm look like that doesn't charge by the billable hour? Just know what that even looks like. I think a lot of people even have a hard time, so it's one thing to say, well, piece this off, but what is the end goal, right? Like what can your life be if you are kind of running a whether it's, fixed or product-based or subscriptions and those kind of things. I just, it's funny, I was thinking about this as you were talking, I just switched my CPA firm this year, and I'm like, well, how much is this going to cost?
And you didn't hire us. Go on.
Can't mix the the business with the CPA. But he came to me and I'm like, how much it's going to cost and stuff. And I kind of had like, okay, here's what I've paid my CPA for the past 4 years, and usually between like March and May is when I get all the invoices. And he's like, well, it's this much per month. And I'm like, per month, and he's like, well, yeah. He goes, we're going to have a monthly call. He goes, and I found that if I have a monthly call, then we can do things in the beginning of the year instead of scrambling and having all of our work happen in November and December and then, March. And I'm like, oh, okay. I would prefer that too. I would like to have a monthly call, and I don't want to be scrambling. I always hate December, and suddenly I'm like, and then I added it all up, and it was probably about $400 more than I think I had paid the previous year to my CPA the old fashioned way. And so they've obviously figured out their process, so it got me thinking like they obviously went through this, and I'm happy about paying a monthly fee that is very predictable, and I know what it's going to be, and I'm going to get a call, and it's going to remind me to make that call because I'll see the fee come in, right? So like that's that kind of model is it's happening, and I mean that's another world of billable hour, that CPA world. So that's it's happening all over.
Yeah, absolutely, and just another case in point. I am an accountant. I have a full-fledged accounting firm, and I'm hosting the Law Firm Growth Summit from February 9th to 11th, right at the beginning or already in tax season. And the reason I'm able to do that is exactly what you just laid out. My clients are monthly paying clients. I invoice them every month, but we also have conversations every month. And we're already doing their books. We already have guided them on what they need to do as far as their tax moves. So there's some end of year documents we need to collect. But other than that, their work is already done, throughout the year. So there isn't the amount of work that needs to be done in tax prep is way less than somebody who's just coming in with a pile of documents or some downloads and saying, hey, now we have to dive in and try to figure out what their business is and, what we need to do to close out their books and all that stuff. So it's a good example. And it's kind of where I got the training and the understanding of how to look at this model and how to understand, because it's more about the perceived value that the client has rather than the value to you. The people approach this from the wrong place. They look at it and say, okay, how many hours should this take? So now let me turn that into a flat fee. Now, if you do that, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's a better way to do it. And that is to look at the deliverable and saying, okay, what is the value of this deliverable to my client? Chances are it's higher than your calculation of how much time it will take. Now you lead with that, and the client is happy because they know what the deliverable is and they know what it's going to cost. And you're happy because you can build in efficiencies. You're already ahead of the game. And now you can be even further ahead of the game if you do it right. So, there's definitely, there's another person you mentioned one, another one is Britta Long. So she was a guest on my podcast. She also wrote a book, and we have a book club for law firm owners called the Reader's Nook. You can look for it on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. And we just read her book in the book club. I'm not running the book club. It's run by one of my team here, my daughter, Mimi. But they do a monthly call to discuss the book, and they're reading some great stuff in there. But her book is another one that's a good resource to go to kind of wrap your head around this idea of flat fee pricing.
Got it. So let's take that on, because like some of the things in this business model and flat fee, you mentioned even the technology as one of your examples, like doc automation or things like that. So in terms of adopting technology and thinking about your business processes and what the right technology to adopt, what are some ways that somebody can take like the first few steps here? Obviously, I agree. I think a lot of people were forced to adopt some technologies and just kind of adopted quickly because of COVID, not because they said, here's what my business processes are, here's what I want to change, right? So how would you go about it if you were recommending?
Yeah, this is a really good question, Mark, because it's again, like, which is first, the chicken or the egg, right? Sometimes you don't know that you need the technology because you don't know it exists or what its power is until you dive into and look at what's available. So you kind of need to toe both lines. You kind of need to look at, what is my business model and what are we doing manually that we can try to seek out a process or a system to automate it? But at the same time, how do I keep abreast of what's available on a technology perspective, and then take that technology and figure out, how does this fit into my business model? So you really need to focus on both sides of the aisle in order to really win at this game. But and legal is behind the curve. I mean, there's just the technology. There's a lot of tech companies that are just starting out that are targeting the legal market, but it wasn't always that way. So some of it is not even, is not your fault. Some of it is just that the tech just wasn't there. But now there's a lot that is there. And I would tell you, the first place to start is to fix your sales funnel. You have leads come through the door, and the follow-up is where you lose the potential client. 9 times out of 10, I would tell you 90% of law firms can increase their clients by not changing their marketing, but by fixing their sales funnel. And this is even important for
as a marketer. I totally agree with that. Like that is, something that, yes, we can always help you get more leads, but there's so much lost in the middle there, and you should fix that problem before you go spend more money on marketing.
And this is a major focus in the Law Firm Growth Summit as well. We have Lawmatics presenting, which is just one CRM product. And I don't care who you use, but you have to have a system that is designed to help you sell. Trying to fit your practice management system to be a CRM when it wasn't intended to be isn't the solution, because you lose out on the ability to create the automations necessary to make sure that somebody is moving through the process with clear communication, clear expectation, and driving them constantly to the next step with your firm. So we have presentations by Lawmatics and also by our friend Jordan Ostroff, who helps implement Lawmatics, right? He helps you figure out how to, how to fix that sales funnel. And they're each doing talks and workshops around those areas that you can come and literally get your hands dirty with understanding your sales process and where the places are that you can automate and you can make this a better process. So the first place that I would start with technology is to abandon this myth that I can get by with just a practice management software and look at the sales process with a completely different set of eyes. This is for a CRM to do. Now, Clio has Clio Grow. That is a CRM. They bought another product. They integrated it with theirs. So, but that's one. There's a ton of practice management softwares out there, and the rest, they're just not designed for a CRM. So that's the first place I would start, because you're spending time, effort, money on marketing, and you're bringing leads through the door, and then you're not closing them. And if you can fix that, that really changes your business. Then from there, then you can look at your operation side and say, okay, what can we implement on the operation side that is that's worthwhile for us to look at? And it goes back to the business model, right? If it doesn't make sense for you financially to look at these other things and fix them, it's going to be hard to make the case to recognize the potential. So you kind of need to marry the previous conversation with this one to then say, okay, now that I've created a business model where I control the efficiency, how do I make it more efficient so that ultimately I, as the business owner, am profiting more?
Right.
That's the name of the game. You're not doing this for the fun of it. You're doing this because you want more time. You want more money. So this is what's going to give it to you, not working more hours at your hourly rate that you're then going to discount.
Yeah, and to temper that like a little bit, because I've met a lot of lawyers who say, look, I truly got in this to go help this particular problem, and I can't afford to help this problem unless but until you have a profitable business that has repeatable, predictable kind of streams, you can't go do all the things you want to do, right? You're kind of forced to do the things that are coming in the door right then. So,
yeah, Mark, I don't think that what I'm saying is at odds with what you're saying.
No, you're not. I want to clarify.
Yeah,
jump in and then go, well, I'm not in it for the money. And it's like, well, you need.
Well, you're not in it to do charity also, because otherwise you would just do pro bono work. You wouldn't have to sell anything, right? Why do you have to hire staff? Just go and volunteer, stand at the courthouse and say, hey, who needs a lawyer, right? You obviously want to effectuate change or help an industry or do something, but you need the firepower to do that, right? You need the ability to do that. And let me ask you this: if adopting this different business model will make you more money, but will also allow you to serve twice or three times as many clients with the same amount of personnel, wouldn't that be doing what you set out to do?
Totally
so
agree. Totally agree.
I think that we need to look at this from not just how do I make more money, but how do I get more clients through the door without needing to hire more staff because I can't afford to do that because my business model doesn't support it. And this is the solution.
Yeah. So there's, a lot of technology tools there for that. And you brought up a few, like you could piece just one part of your operations and just do one thing and leave everything else in. So maybe it's just document automation, right? Maybe it's something else.
There's another piece of technology that I'll share. One of the people that I recently came across, and I had him on the podcast, and they actually decided to put some money behind our podcast too. They sponsored the podcast, but it's a company called LawFunder. And what's interesting is that they created this system where you can provide payment plan options to your clients for that flat fee service, or even an open invoice that they have. Where you're not taking the risk. So the biggest reason why attorneys don't offer payment plans is because it's very risky. You give a payment plan, you provide service, and now you're behind, and the payments are not ahead. Your service is not behind the payments. And in other words, you provided more service than the payments you collected. And now the client says, oh, I don't need to pay because I got served, and they stop paying. You took all the risk. What's beautiful is that it's a piece of technology that they use that uses a client's credit card. And all it does is it ties up the open credit line in their card for the full amount of the invoice, but only charges them for the payment. So they're not paying interest on it. It's not hurting their credit. It's not doing any of that. They still get to earn their points or whatever percentage back that they get by using their credit card. And every month, automatically, it will charge the next amount and release that much from the tied up, credit line of the credit card. So that's another example of technology where it's not necessarily making something more efficient from a how many can I move through, but it's eliminating a massive suck on your business when it comes to being able to get a client or AR, or there's so many areas where just that one solution fixes a massive hole.
Yeah, I was just say, like, you could thread all 4 of these kind of predictions with just that one solution, right? So that one solution is, you're moving some payment off, you're kind of outsourcing some of your payment headaches, right? And so you're finding a vendor to help with that, that's an expert, and that's what they do. Right, we've outsourced, like the piece, right? So we've got a technology that they're using. I'm now able to even provide payment plans from a business model perspective that I didn't even do before. And then because I have payment plans now, I can access more people and market them. I mean, like, you've kind of talked about like threading all 4 of your predictions like that, and you could probably take a lot of these examples and kind of go through, like, these things all, and you mentioned this in the first half. Like, these things all kind of work together, and you do need to be thinking about them in conjunction. Don't just go pick off one and run, but you will end up kind of doing some of the others. So that's an interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I think that 2021 is the year, because everything needed to be ready to be able to do all of these, right? The technology had to be there to solve the problems, to make things more efficient. The staffing had to be there to, the people had to be willing and wanting to work in that way to be able to fragment your staffing and hire people for specific things that you need done, and not have to go through an entire hiring process for every single one of them. And then the Google reviews had to be the place that people are going for that to become the important thing. It's kind of like all of these things had to have this great culmination effect of now's the time. And somebody said it to me really, one point, Mark, somebody said it to me recently on a call, and I've been using this line ever since. 2025 came 5 years early for the law firm industry.
Right.
And that's really what's driving my predictions for 2021, is that I think that all of these things have come to prime time, some of them a little bit before they were ready, a little bit before maturity, but the owner who is able to see that and is able to shift, and small law firms have the ability to shift on a dime, and that gives you a massive leg up over the large firms, right? The ones who are able to shift, change their business model, change the way they're marketing themselves, and rise into this quickly are the ones that are going to be light years ahead. Kind of like you said with my law firm growth summit, where we did a virtual event before anybody else did. You're going to have worked out all the kinks in this model before anybody else even starts to think about using it. And you're going to just be getting customers. You're just going to be getting market share. You're just going to be pushing clients through efficiently, and you're going to be able to serve so many more people, and you're going to be able to buy a boat.
So here's the thing, because you said, a lot of these things had to be ready. The one thing that has been ready for, I think, a few years is the consumer. Like, if we look at all the trend reports, the consumer's been ready for all this to happen. Like, they want a more predictable understanding of what things are going to cost. They want, the attorney to work in a certain way. They want to be able to go look at reviews and use that to, like, judge some things, right? Like, all the data around what the consumer is looking for in how they find a law firm, what they consider a good experience at a law firm, what they want to pay for, right? That part's been there, pent up, ready to take advantage of this. And I think some firms have, turned the corner early and are, reaping, the rewards of that. So a lot of people got pushed into it.
And I think to your point that the client has been ready for a long time, is that often we think that we're competing against other firms in the same pie, and we're trying to get a bigger slice. And the reality is that the pie is way bigger than we thought, because people were saying, no, I'm not hiring a lawyer. They weren't saying, I'm going to choose a different lawyer. So what's going to happen now is that more and more people are going to choose to use a lawyer because the fees are going to come down. They're going to be more predictable. It's going to be more reachable by people who thought it was unattainable before. And suddenly more people are going to be using legal services. So this is not, oh my gosh, we're going to lose clients, or we're going to, people are going to stop using us. There's this big fear that, somebody like LegalZoom, right, is encroaching on the legal territory and is taking away business. But the reality is that their tagline is they're democratizing law. And the reality is that everybody should be doing that. All lawyers should be trying to democratize law. All lawyers should be trying to make it cheaper for clients to get their services, because that is going to allow you to serve more people. And the more efficient you get at it, the better you get at it, the more it's going to be pertinent for somebody to use you. And I think that it's a win for everybody involved. And that's why I'm so excited right now. I'm just excited about the opportunity for this industry.
Yeah, it's a good time to be involved in this industry, in terms of the ability to make massive change to help so many people, not just like the law firm business owners, but the consumers at large and the potential clients out there. And I think your point about like the LegalZoom kind of thing, right? Like there is a ton of people that now know they even need a will or a contract or these kind of things because that document exists. That what do we do to kind of like make it easier for them to go have an expert help them with that, because they really do want the expert.
Right.
People.
And I'll tell you, you used an accounting example earlier, so I'm going to use an accounting example now. I'm an accountant, right? Somebody comes to me and says, hey, I need to form an entity, right? I'll tell them, look, there's two parts to forming an entity. One is deciding which is the right entity for you strategically based on your personal situation and what you're going to be doing in this business, making sure it's the right legal protection and it's the right tax move for you. And the other thing is going to the Department of State and filing for that.
Yeah.
And I tell them, I say, I'm going to charge you X amount of dollars to go through that process and figure out which is the right entity. And then I'm going to send you to LegalZoom to go and do it. Because I don't want to be involved in transactional work. It's not worth my time. They're going to get a better deal somewhere else. So I use that as a way to not tie myself up with something unnecessary and be able to use that time to serve my clients in a better way. And it elevates my status. So when you're looking at stuff like that, you have to figure out not how do I compete against them, but how do I compete with them? How do I take what they created and harness that to elevate myself as being somebody that is even more necessary now than I was before?
Yeah, and I want to it was we dove back into the business model a little bit there. So the last point was the kind of shift in staffing, and I know you already gave some examples in the first half hour where we talked about like law clerk and to get stepped up and stuff. But what are if you were a law firm kind of saying, okay, I've been hiring everybody, and when I think I need more help, I think about oh, I need to save up enough money to hire somebody else, and now I need benefits, and somebody's asked about a 401k, right? How do I kind of look at that and say, well, instead of that thinking, how do I move this way? I don't want to lay my staff off, but like, what's the next first thing I can do?
And the other question that they're asking, besides for how am I going to pay for them and what's the overhead, the other question they're asking is what else can I put on their plate to make it justified to bring them on right now, right?
Correct.
So I'm going to hire a paralegal, and then I'm going to have the paralegal cleaning the bathrooms, right? And that's what happens when you go through that exercise this way, which is backwards, right? I know I need help, so I'm going to hire somebody who I now need to figure out how to fill their plate. So I learned this from a business coach of mine. It's called the DAD method, and it's basically go through everything that you're doing, and it's both you personally as well as what the firm is doing, and go through this process of identifying whether you can delete, automate, or delegate that task. And you really want to go through everything. I did a write-up a while back about time efficiency for law firm owners. One of the tools that's out there that's really worth it for you to try is something called Timular. So it's spelled TIMEULAR, timular.com. And it's basically this 8-sided device. It's electronic. Yes. And then you label each side for the main task that you're doing. And every time you switch tasks, you just turn it to the right side, and it tracks how much time you're spending on each of those tasks. And then you use that for a week. And when you're done, you run a report. and you look at how much context switching you're doing, and you look at the types of tasks that you're spending your time on, and you will be shocked to find out where you're spending the most time. You'll be shocked to find out how much time you spend walking around, going to the bathroom, going to the closet to get a snack, and coming back to your desk. You'll be shocked at how much time you're spending on the phone, stopping what you're doing to take a phone call, going back to what you're doing, trying to figure out where you were up to. When you start to look at those things and you start to see the distractions, the interruptions, and also where the bulk of your time is being spent, it's going to start to open your eyes to where you need to put in. And some of it is, hey, I got to stop doing this. Mm-hmm. And some of it is, I need to find a way to automate this or to batch it in a certain way. And then some of it is, hey, I need to find somebody to take this job over. You know, right. If email is showing up every 5 minutes throughout the day, and I'm spending 3 hours on email, which is what most of us are doing, or on social or whatever it is, then I need to find somebody to manage my email. Or find a tool to manage my email, which there's tools that'll pause your inbox. There's tools that will, that will just show you your inbox when you want it, or automate sending back a message to somebody who, sends you an email saying, hey, I only check my email twice a day, and I'm going to check my email at 3 o'clock. And that's when you'll hear a response from me, that kind of stuff. So there are tools, technology, there's pieces to do it. So there's the automation part, but if that doesn't sit right with you, it doesn't feel right, then you go to the delegate. So even before talking about who am I going to bring on, what am I going to have them do, we have to identify what those tasks are. So the step number one is find a way to identify clearly what you need to bring somebody in for. And that will already start to shape the idea of, hey, I need somebody who can be an assistant to do X, Y, Z. I need a paralegal because I'm doing way too much of this work that a paralegal can get done. I need somebody to answer the phones because my phone keeps ringing and I keep answering it.
Right. And when you say like, I can bring a paralegal on, it's like, but maybe you only need 20 hours or 15 hours of that. And now there are options out there for getting 15 hours of an expert paralegal.
Yeah, absolutely. So this goes back to what we spoke about in the first segment, which is we're in a gig economy. So every single thing that I need to outsource, I can find somebody specifically for that thing. And I have to figure out how much do I want to manage? How many different people do I want to be working with? And what do I want to bring somebody in-house for? And what am I okay with somebody, being outsourced to? Some people don't want a virtual reception service because they want the phone answered by somebody that they can train, and it's going to be answered the same way every single time. And they're not okay with the possibility of it being different receptionists every single time the phone rings, even if they have a script and they're well trained and everything like that. So somebody like that is not going to be good for somebody like Smith AI. But somebody who's open to the possibility and all the benefits that having a company answer your phone for you can do, which means that when the person who you hire to answer the phone is on the phone already, that the call doesn't go to voicemail or go unanswered, or when that person is sick or out on vacation, or it's after hours, all of those things get solved when you outsource to somebody whose job it is to answer the phone. So you have to weigh in each of those things, you have to weigh what those possibilities are. But the first thing is just to understand and know, no matter what you think of, there's an option out there to hire somebody specifically for that amount of time for that specific purpose. And you have to really get clear on which of those you want. Do I want the person who's going to be the most efficient, and I have to manage yet another contact, another person to stay on top of, or is this something I can lump together and assign to somebody else?
Yeah, so I like that. So the specific kind of takeaway, right? Timular as a device, or there's like time analysis. I mean, like I just have every 15 minutes on your day in a book. There's like books you can actually buy that do that, or pages you can download. So those kind of things where you do basically doing a time study. Use the time study to kind of look and say, where are my big areas that I could possibly, like the DAD method was what were the three things?
Delete, automate, delegate.
Yep. So you're going to either kill something off, you're going to automate it, and then, or you're going to say, I find somebody else to do this. And that find somebody else, good opportunity to start thinking bigger than I need to hire somebody to do this, and then package them with 5 of the things that I need to delegate, and they don't match up to one person, right? And maybe finding an outsourced expert for that. So that good opportunity for, growing your team as your business grows versus like growing them in like spurts of hiring somebody and having like that be on the hook for that. So, and I think that's a big shift that we've started seeing happening, but it's going to continue as well. And I think as people become more aware, I mean, I know, we utilize virtual assistants, and we utilize some outsourced people, as well as, having team in house, and it's the right people doing the right things. We've kind of taken on some of those. We talked about Michael Michalowicz. He had a book where he kind of, the clockwork, where we did the kind of like thing where you take the post-it notes and move them slowly away from the person in terms of what they should be focusing on. So it's a different way to kind of think about it. It was like more of a task-driven thing than a time study thing, but same kind of concepts to figure out, who else should be doing things and what should you be focused on. So these things all kind of, coming together with the ability to actually outsource very, finite things. It's a great way to start kind of thinking about how to outsource and who to outsource to. So I think that's a very tangible takeaway of, doing the time study. I love that kind of, it was like a Dungeons and Dragons looking, kind of cube, right? It's like that 8-sided dice or whatever that you move around with the different things. I totally, I think I've looked that up because you've mentioned that before somewhere. So I think you introduced me to that before. So Timular, we'll try to put that in the notes as well. So for our production guys listening, make sure we get that in the description. But with that though, I mean, we have taken a significant amount of your time, as much as I know you love this. You have a whole conference to run and plan. So I need to let you get back to that. Thanks for sticking with me. I mean, we went through the predictions and then some how-tos here. If somebody didn't get like 2 or 3, I need to go do this tomorrow kind of ideas out of this, then I don't know what they were listening to. So thanks for sticking with me, Moshe. I really appreciate it.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. And the kids just got home, which is why I muted my microphone, let you close this out. But it's about to get crazy here. So this is a really good place for us to shut it down. But one final time, you're watching this on YouTube, go to lawfirmgrowthsummit.com/GNGF. We have an amazing 3 days coming up, February 9th to the 11th. If you're watching this afterwards, maybe we'll have the replays for sale for you, but definitely come and join us for an unforgettable experience. We're really excited about it. And make sure to use discount code GNGF80. That'll give you 80% off of the list price of those tickets. So something that we've done special for Mark and his audience, which is you.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for sticking with me, Moshe. We'll see you later.
Take care.
Hey, what's up? I'm Josh. Thanks so much for joining us. If you feel like you learned something today, think of how beneficial it would be to chat with myself or another one of our marketing consultants one-on-one. Go ahead and visit our website to schedule your free consultation. It only takes a minute.